I used to think that if I could just eat less, then I could take back control of my relationship with food. I spent years on various diets, on healthy eating plans, always trying to have more control, but inevitably it would lead to a binge and then a purge, and I'd end up feeling so much guilt and shame and just like a total failure. It took me years to discover this secret that completely changed my relationship with food and helped me recover from bulimia. The key to recovery wasn't eating less, it was actually eating more. It may sound totally counterintuitive, but I'll explain the science behind why this works and also how a structured approach to eating can be your very first step to recovery from bulimia. I'm Lara and I help high-achieving women break the binge cycle to feel calm around food and confident in their bodies. I've now helped over 200 women heal from binging, overeating and bulimia and heal their relationship with food. Hit the like and subscribe button to stick around. Let's jump in then. For years, I was stuck in this cycle where I would restrict and diet, and that would be cutting down on calories or cutting out food groups. And that would eventually lead to overeating, to binging, and then when I discovered purging, to purging as well. That was something I discovered when I was 16, and for about 8 years, off and on, I was really trapped in this cycle. In those years, I was really governed by that good versus bad food mentality. I would skip meals to save calories. And I kept on thinking, if only I can shrink my body, then I will be happy. But the control was a total illusion because every time I did restrict my calories or cut out food groups, that was followed by binging and then a purge. It was almost like someone flicked the switch in my brain where I just had to eat everything in sight and stuff as much food into my mouth. And then I'd undo the damage by having a purge. Weirdly, there was always this split second of relief after the purge, but then that was followed by this deep sense of guilt, of failure, and like feeling quite disgusted with myself. And then I'd start the next day swearing, today I'm going to be good, I'm going to cut down, maybe skip breakfast, have a really light lunch. And then inevitably the binge would be even more chaotic at the end of it. Eventually I had this aha moment, and that was through working with an eating disorder dietitian, where I learned that it was this restriction that always backfired. If you think of it a little bit like a pendulum, you have restriction on the one side and then you have the binge on the other. The problem is, the more you restrict, the more you cut calories or cut out food groups or skip meals, then the greater the binge. So the more you pull the pendulum back in one direction, the more it's going to go in the other direction. Because when you restrict food, your body is deprived of energy. Your body doesn't know that you're trying to fit into a pair of jeans. Your body literally thinks you are starving. And because you're wired for survival, your brain cranks up the production of hunger hormones. It stops producing so many fullness hormones. It makes you ravenously hungry. So you have these intense, obsessive thoughts about food because it's desperately trying to find that energy. So that urge to binge that you have, it's not because you lack willpower or because you're not disciplined enough. It's literally a survival mechanism. Your brain doesn't want you to starve, and it's trying to prevent you from dying in a famine, basically. So your binge is your body's desperate attempt to get the food or the nourishment that it needs. And for me, realizing that was such an aha moment and the kind of the turning point in healing my relationship with food. The problem was the restriction and not because I wasn't disciplined enough. So when I work with clients, one of the very first things we do is introduce something called nutritional rehabilitation. This is really at the heart of healing from binging and purging. What we're trying to do is eat consistently and adequately, and that helps do things like balance your blood sugar levels and help with your metabolism. Actually, in medical settings for treatment for eating disorders, this is really at the heart of that rehabilitation as well. So the goal is to stabilize your eating patterns, to help support any nutritional deficiencies, and ultimately get rid of that binge purge cycle by removing one of the triggers, which is the restriction. So the core idea with this is about using food to nourish your body. Now, in all those years that I was restricting and binging and purging, I used to actually see and feel like food was my enemy. So there needs to be a bit of a mindset switch where you go from seeing food as your enemy to seeing it as something that's going to nourish your body. So with nutritional rehabilitation, we start off by eating almost like in a mechanical process where you eat by the clock. You're eating regularly every 3 to 4 hours. And the idea is at the beginning to give your body a steady and reliable source of energy. This does two crucial things. Number one, it heals your body on a cellular level, but importantly, it sends a message to your brain that the famine is over and you don't need to be in that kind of panic mode anymore. So you're putting together this structured plan for eating. And you might be asking, well, what does that actually look like? So the first step is that you want to be eating regularly. And here I recommend this pattern of eating, which is every 3 to 4 hours. And this might look like 3 meals, breakfast, lunch and dinner, and then a snack in between. So you're going breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner. And at first, you really do need to eat by the clock rather than relying on your hunger signals. And that's because for most people who've been stuck in this binge purge cycle, restrict binge purge cycle, is that your body's hunger signals aren't particularly reliable. You might not even know what your hunger signals feel like. And by eating consistently, you're not allowing your body to get overly hungry. And it's when we get overly hungry that the urge to binge becomes really strong. So by eating regularly, you're stabilizing your blood sugar levels, you're helping your body tune into your hunger and fullness signals, and over time, you'll start to recognize what hunger feels like. And then also you're not allowing yourself to get overly hungry. And then the second part in this process is about learning how to create balanced meals. Now, I recommend when you're thinking about this meal, snack, meal, you want to ensure that for every meal or snack, you have a source of protein and a source of fiber. Now, the reason I recommend those to build out the rest of your plate with is that protein helps with a sense of satiety, and so does fiber. But many people are not having enough fiber. So we need about 30 grams-ish per day. Most people don't even get to about half that. Protein plus fiber help you feel that lovely, comfortable sense of fullness or satisfaction, satiety. And then alongside this, you want to make sure that there's a source of carbs and a source of healthy fats. When you are consistently getting all the macronutrients you need, what happens is that your cravings actually go down. You reduce your cravings and you feel more satisfied when you eat. And the third step in this process is to very safely introduce your fear foods. Now, I only recommend this once you have steps 1 and 2 nailed down. When you are eating regularly and you are having those macronutrients, you'll find that the urge to binge slowly fades. And I will say that this particular step, some people find it much easier to tackle with the support of a professional, whether a dietitian or a coach like me, but it must be someone trained to work with people who have eating disorders. Step 3 is about strategically introducing those foods that perhaps you label as your binge foods or your fear foods. And basically you would make a list of the foods that scare you, and traditionally these are the ones that people see as bad and that usually trigger a binge, and you would start off with the ones that feel less scary, and then you would intentionally plan to have a normal portion of that alongside a meal. So let's say, for example, before you used to binge on ice cream and always have a full pint of ice cream, you would plan to have a scoop of ice cream alongside a meal, let's say lunch. The idea behind this is you're proving to your brain that you can eat this without it turning into a binge, but also you're kind of normalizing that food. When we label them as our binge foods or fear foods or bad foods, we've kind of put them up on a pedestal and we become fearful of them, when we normalize them by introducing it to a normal meal, we're basically taking the emotional potency out of that food. And most people find, and again, you might need to do this with the help of a professional, but most people find that over time, the desire to actually eat ice cream in the first place really goes down and it no longer becomes a fear food. Quick side note here, if you're finding this video helpful, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel to get more tips about healing from things like binging and bulimia. So when I personally started working through my nutritional rehabilitation, I found that over time, the food noise, that mental chatter about food, slowly went away. Because when your body is reliably fueled, your brain can basically chill out. It frees up so much mental space and you can focus on so much more, your life, your relationships, your work, your career, all those things that eating disorder steals from you. And it can be really hard. So I'm not saying that this process is easy. And like I say, for a lot of people, working with a professional is really helpful because a lot of what we have to do is move away from some of the messages that we get from diet culture. And I will say that there will be hard days. So relapses are common. So in my journey of recovery from binge eating and bulimia, I found I would go for a while, everything's absolutely fine. And then suddenly one day I have a binge, I have a purge, and then I felt like, crap, it's not going as well as I thought. I want you to know that that is part of the process. Recovery is not linear. You might find that things are getting better, and then suddenly you have a really awful day. And we use the binge and the purge as a coping mechanism, so we go back to that. So that kind of like stop and start process can be really normal. A relapse doesn't mean that you failed. It's a normal part of the process, and it's a chance to learn your triggers. So if you realize that there are certain things that cause the binge and purge, then it's worth unpicking that and seeing what it was and seeing if you can maybe try and avoid it. And in most cases, you'll find that if you're underfueled, it's much harder to resist the binge and the purge. Because remember that you're unlearning years of toxic messaging and you're also relearning how to trust your body, and that can take time. There you have it. The secret to stopping binging and purging is actually to eat more food. By eating more consistently and adequately, you take away your body's reason to panic. And really, so much of this journey is about learning to work with your body and not against it. I really hope you found that helpful. If you did, pop me a note in the comments below. And if you are interested in working with a professional, so an eating disorder recovery coach like me, you can hop over to Instagram and just message me the word balance, and you can find out a little bit more about what it would be like working with me. And finally, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. You can check out these videos next for more tips on binge freedom, food freedom, and recovering from disordered eating. Bye for now.